Today we're going to disassemble an M1 Carbine for cleaning. You don't need much for this disassembly. Some basic tools, different size slotted screwdrivers, needle nose pliers will come in handy, pin punch set of various types will come in handy, although you can also use the recoil spring guide, which I'll show you in the video, eye protection, gloves, and I do recommend a gallon-sized Ziploc bag, and that is for catching pieces that might launch off into your room when we're taking apart the bolt, as you'll see in the video. There's also some specialized tools that I have linked down in the description, and I'll show you those in the reassembly video that you're probably going to need to put the bolt back together. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, this is the very first time I've taken this apart, so we are going to do this together and we'll learn this together. First thing we need to do to disassemble the M1 Carbine is verify that there is no round in the chamber and no magazine in the firearm. First thing we need to do is get this band off the front, and that can be done with a regular slotted screwdriver. This is actually shaped so you can loosen this with the rim of a .30 carbine round. So it is not a good idea when you're cleaning a gun to have any live ammunition nearby, but I just actually couldn't resist trying this. You can do it. It does fit in there, and I guess in a pinch you could use the round to do it. It's not easy. This one's on the tight side. So anyway, I just wanted to try that. Now I'm going to take this ammunition and get it out of the room. All right, so let's actually do this with a screwdriver. So it looks like it doesn't want to come any looser than that, probably so you can't lose the screw. Push that little spring down right there, and then you can slide this off. All right, so the screw doesn't come all the way out. It's kind of retained in there, which is good, so loosen it as much as you can. And then you can slide this off. It's got the cool little bayonet lug. The whole thing kind of slides down like that. Then this top piece just slides off the front. And once you pull this top piece off, this entire mechanism just completely pulls out of the stock. So this is basically the rifle right here. Next we're going to remove the trigger guard pin, which is this pin right here. And this one comes out nice and easy. And once you get that out, the trigger assembly will slide off just like that. Next we're going to remove the recoil spring and guide, which is right here. And just take the recoil spring, push it back, the guide comes out with it. Kind of bend it off to the side like that, and pull that out. It's a nice long recoil spring there with the guide pin inside. Okay, now once you get the recoil spring assembly out, next we want to remove this piece and the actual bolt inside here. So what you'll notice is over here there's a little notch right here, and there's a notch right here. So those two notches are going to allow us to remove this piece right here. I'm going to move the handle back just about to where this notch is right there. And when you get it to the notch, you can pull it out just a little bit. You see it pulls out like that, and once that's out, you can slide this kind of forward piece here to this notch. And once it's lined up to that notch, this whole piece kind of falls right out. Alright, and now you can unlock the bolt, move it back a little bit, and it starts to come out. And if you turn it over, you'll see there's some pieces there that are kind of going to get stuck, so you just have to twist it a little until your bolt comes right out. Alright, so this piece, this is your barrel. This is pretty much taken apart except for the sight here. We do want to remove this piston here in case that needs to be cleaned. So what I did was, it unscrews. Mine was really tight, but what I did was I just got this in here and pried it with this really big screwdriver, and it broke it loose. Just unscrew this. This probably isn't the exact tool you should use, but it's working okay. Once you start getting it out, just don't mess up the lower threads where it actually threads in there. This part here is kind of sticking out, so Not too concerned with those threads because they're not actually threading into anything. Alright, so just unscrew that piece there. Then you can pull this piston out of here. Next, we want to take this bolt apart a little bit more. Your firing pin, we want to get out of there and clean that up. We want to get the ejector out. That's that little pin right there. We want to get that out. We want to get the firing pin out and clean up all the insides here, which, as you can tell, are pretty dirty. All right, so now what we want to do is get the extractor out of the bolt. The extractor has a pin from this side, and it goes through the middle, and this is the other side of that pin. That's part of the extractor right here. And the extractor pin holds in the ejector spring, and the firing pin. The extractor also has, right in here, this is the extractor pin. This has got a spring underneath of it that is putting pressure on the extractor so that it's kind of bending in toward the breech face here. So what we need to do is pull this out. And again, it's got a pin that goes through the middle here. Now the problem is it's got pressure on it from this pin. The extractor also holds in the ejector under spring pressure. So there's a very real possibility that springs are going to go flying. I kind of have a bag kind of hanging over the top here so that if anything does get loose and go launching, hopefully this bag is going to catch it right here. So I'm just kind of open the bag, and I'm going to aim it kind of in that direction so that anything that comes out will be caught. Alright, so I'm going to, with the bag here, I'm not going to put my finger over the top because I got that bag. That bag's going to help me out. Go in here and push that pin down. That pin is what's really kind of holding this in place. Alright, once we get the extractor to start backing out, you see how the extractor plunger and spring is now underneath the little corner of the extractor here. So I'm starting to make progress, and it's backing out. So we just need to go a little bit further. Looks like this on the other side. We just need to go a little bit further. Alright, and then it came out, and fortunately it went right into the bag, and so did the little pin. This is that little pin. It's a little bit magnetic there. Okay, and now the extractor is starting to come out. Now it didn't go launching across the room, so we can just pull that out here. That was really tight, so things are really crudded up in here, so it's a good thing that we are cleaning this. And there's the ejector spring. This is the ejector and the ejector spring, and this went in this orientation so that the little notch is facing that hole, and that pin, the pin of the extractor, held that in place. Alright, so we got that piece out. This is the little plug that was putting pressure up on the extractor that we just pulled out, and that went in here like that, on top of that spring. That's where that came from. But as you can see, there's a bunch of crud in here. We need to get all this cleaned up. Alright, so we're going to get that out of there. We got to get the spring out of there as well. Alright, so we want to pull out the extractor spring. It's actually a pretty long spring for that short hole. That's why it's so tight. Alright, and because the extractor has been removed, that also was responsible for holding the firing pin in there. And what it was doing was it was going through this notch to keep the firing pin from coming out. And so now we have the bolt completely disassembled. Alright, so now we're going to disassemble the trigger housing assembly. And we're going to use this recoil spring rod right here. I'm not sure if that's the right term for it, but we're going to use this as a tool for taking this trigger housing assembly apart. I'm just going to wipe it down a little bit. First thing we want to do is release this hammer spring here. So if your hammer is back like that, you want to carefully release that, and the only way to do that is to make sure your safety is in the fire position. Hold this with this finger, press the trigger, and slowly let that release. Alright, you don't want to let that fly forward because it can damage your trigger assembly. Alright, and then you just want to take the pressure off the spring, so just kind of put this in here like that, press back with the spring. It's a pretty strong spring, so don't point it at yourself, and move it off to the side like that. Alright, it's a little bit of a strong spring, so just be careful when you do that. Alright, and then that is alright. So next you just want to push this pin, hammer pin, out to the side, and your hammer is going to come off just like that. Next we're going to remove the trigger pin right here. So just push that out, and once you release that, your Sear comes out, and the Sear spring comes out with that as well. And move the trigger forward like I just did. The trigger will come out, as well as the trigger spring. Alright, so next we're going to remove the magazine release that's spring loaded right here. So if you look down inside this hole, you'll see there's a pin in there with a little notch, so you can kind of get in here on the right hand side. You got to put pressure, downward pressure on there, and push the spring push the spring to the left, and as you can see, the magazine catch kind of sprung out. Didn't go far, but it did fly out of there. Okay, and then you can pull this piece out. It looks like that. And now you can pull this piece out. This piece with this spring comes out. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of gunk down in there. We got a lot of cleaning to do on this, but that comes out of there. Alright, now we have completely disassembled the trigger housing assembly. That is the complete disassembly of the M1 Carbine. In my next video, I'm going to clean all these pieces up, and then we're going to reassemble.